I welcome you all in the King's Academy. Myself Priya and I will be teaching your science subject, and our today's topic is plant tissue. So before I start with plant tissue, I would like to ask you the question, then what is tissue, or what do you understand from tissue? So basically a tissue is a group of cells which originate from a same origin and which performs the same function. So a cell is a single or a multi-cell, right? So a tissue is a multicellular organ, or tissue is a multicellular group of cells which perform same function and which also originates from a same place. So basically there are two types of plant tissues. One is meristematic and another one is permanent tissues. And the meristematic tissue is again divided into three types of tissues. One is apical, intercalary and then lateral. Permanent tissue is again divided into two types, simple permanent and complex permanent. Simple permanent is divided into again three types, parenchymas, colonchymas and sclerenchymas, and this complex tissue is divided into xylem and phloem. So let's discuss about all these one by one, right? So firstly we will discuss about this meristematic tissue. This meristematic tissue, this tissue means the origin of the cells, the origin of the cell growth. This tissue helps in the cell growth, which means this tissue is situated in a place which is able to divide a cell, which is having large number of protoplasm which enables the cell to divide. So this tissue helps in the cell to grow. So this meristematic tissue helps in the growth of the cell. So this is again divided into apical, intercalary and this lateral. So apical tissue means the tissue which helps in the growth of the plants towards upper side, which means this tissue helps in the plant to grow. This tissue helps the roots, the stems to grow up, to lengthen up. And this lateral tissue, this tissue is present on the stem region, and this tissue helps in the stem to increase their girth, increase their size. And then another one is intercalary tissue. This tissue is present on the nodes of the plant, and this tissue also helps in the apical growth of the plant, because whenever a cow or any other animal eats the upper portion of the plant, then over here the growth of the plant stops. So for that reason this intercalary helps and plant grows from another side. So I will try to explain you with the help of this diagram. Over here the tip or the apical part of the plant, there is the presence of the tissue known as apical tissue. So apical tissue is present at the apex of the plant and helps the plants to grow upwards, the stems and the roots. The plant is which helps in the girth to expand. This is known as the lateral tissue or the lateral meristem. And over here at the present of the nodes, there is a tissue present that is known as intercalary tissue. This intercalary also help the plants, the stem and the roots to grow and increase up their size towards lengthwise. And this which means that apical and intercalary helps the plant to increase its growth, increase its length. And this lateral meristem, this helps the plant to increase its girth, to expand its size. So I will now remove this diagram. Now after this meristematic, there is the group of cells or the group of tissues which is known as permanent tissues, and these are of two types, simples and then complex. First one in simple category is parenchyma, then is colonchyma and then is sclerenchyma. So I will draw the diagram of this parenchyma cell. This is simply a basic parenchyma cell, in center having nucleus and all other cytoplasmic content over there. So basically the parenchyma cell is living cell having thin cell walls. They are having very thin cell walls and they are living tissues, which is basically helpful in the storage of the materials, right? In plants, when there is the storage of extra chlorophyll, or when there is a large amount of chlorophyll stored in these parenchyma cells, when there is chlorophyll in these cells, then this cell or this type of tissue is known as Sclerenchyma. Parenchyma, when stored large amount of chlorophyll in them, perform the function of photosynthesis, then this type of cells is known as Sclerenchyma. Colonchyma. And in case of the plants that are situated in water or the marshy areas, in these plants there is very large intercellular space, and in these parenchyma cells you have seen there is very few intercellular space. The intercellular space means the space present between the two cells. The space that is present between two cells or more cells is known as intercellular space. And in case of plants that grows in water or marshy areas, they have large amount of intercellular space. They are having very large intercellular space because they need to float. They need this space for their buoyancy, and for this purpose they are having very large intercellular space, and that cells are known as parenchyma cells. So which means this parenchyma cell is divided into two more types, Colonchyma and Parenchyma. Parenchyma means when they have large intercellular space in case of water plants, and Colonchyma means when they store large amount of chlorophyll in them. After this parenchyma cells, there is another kind of simple permanent tissue that is known as Colonchyma. These Colonchyma cells are These are our simple Colonchyma cell, which indicates that the cells have large intercellular space between them, which means cell is having the large number of space between them. And in these Colonchyma cells, they are thick. The parenchyma cells are thin walled, and these cells are thick walled cells, which means they are having very thick cell wall. Thick cell wall, and these Colonchyma helps the plant in bending. You have seen tendrils also, the plants which replicate around another plant, and the plant which coil themselves around another plant. They are doing this because of this Colonchyma tissues. This tissue helps in plant in bending, so which means they can form tendrils like this. You have seen these structures in some plants and in some tendrils and some climbers also. They helps in the binding of the plants, and this tissue is known as Colonchyma cells. And after this Colonchyma cell, the next cell that we are having is Sclerenchyma cells. These Sclerenchyma cells are long and elongated cells. This is our simple sclerenchymatic cell, which indicates that the cell is having long size and cell is having very thick cell wall with it, and sclerenchyma cells are basically the dead cells. These are dead cells. These are dead cell, and these dead cell helps the plant to girth itself, to stand, to bear itself. These sclerenchymatic cells help this sclerenchymatic tissue helps the plant to stand the large storm, to the wind, and this helps in the plant in this way. You have seen the husk of the coconut, and the husk of coconut is very hard, very hard and very ductile, and this is an example of sclerenchymatic tissue, husk of coconut, which is also known as outer covering of coconut, which is sclerenchymatic tissue. After this, we are having xylem cells and phloem cells. Xylem is basically known as plant drinking. Xylem is known as plant drinking because xylem cell helps the plant to get the water and the minerals from roots to the upper portions of the plant, which means xylem is having xylem tracheids, xylem vessels, xylem tracheids, xylem vessels, and xylem tube. So xylem cell is again differentiated into three kinds: xylem tracheids, xylem vessels, and xylem tubes. And these cell helps in the plant in plant drinking, which means they take the water and the minerals from roots and they take it to the upwards. Xylem movement is towards the upwards, and the phloem movement is from leaves to upwards and to the all sides, right? And these cells are known as tracheids, vessels, and tubes, right? And after that, the another complex tissue is phloem cells, and phloem is known as plant eating. Plant eating. And these phloem cells are again divided into companion cells, sieve plate, phloem parenchyma, phloem parenchyma, which means the phloem takes the, as we all know that leaves with the help of chlorophyll perform the function of photosynthesis and make the plant provide the energy by providing it food. So phloem takes that food, that organic energy that is created by leaves, phloem takes that and distributed it to the whole plant. So phloem act as a plant eating and xylem act as plant drinking. These two diagrams indicate this is xylem tubes and this is xylem vessels, and this is how they perform their function. They take the water and the minerals from roots and they take it towards upwards and distribute it to the whole plant. Now we will draw the diagram of phloem cells. This is basically a simple phloem cell that I am going to draw over here. This is called, outer cells are called as companion cells. These cells are called as phloem cells or the phloem parenchymas, and this is called as sieve plate. So this is the simple diagram of phloem cells. So this is what the plant tissues are all about. I will quickly help you to revise it again. Plant tissue divided into two tissues, meristematic, permanent. Meristematic tissue helps the plant to grow, to divide. Meristematic is the region where there is large number of cells are present, which helps in the division of the cells, right? So which means meristematic helps the cell to grow. And there are three types of meristematic cell: apical, intercalary, lateral. Apical, which helps in the apical movement of the cell or apical division of the cell. Lateral, which helps the stem girth to increase their size, and the intercalary cells, which are present at the nodes of the cell and which also helps the plant to grow in apical direction. Permanent tissue is two types: simple and then complex. In simple, parenchyma, having thin walled cells, having very few intercellular space. If they are having large amount of chlorophyll, then they are known as Sclerenchyma. If they are having large amount of intercellular spaces, then they are known as Parenchyma. After that, Colonchyma, thick walled cells that helps the plants to bend. And then is Sclerenchyma, dead cells that help the plant to that helps the plant to stand in worse conditions, right? And after that is complex cells, which are xylem and phloem. Xylem is known as plant drinking, phloem is known as plant eating. Xylem takes the water and minerals from roots to the plant upwards, and phloem takes the minerals and the nutrients and also the photosynthetic material that is synthesized by leaves and distribute it to the whole plant. So this is what our today's topic is about, plant tissue. I hope this topic is clear to you, and if you have any issues or any queries, you can text me or you can consult me. Thank you.